now we're going to go to Victoria Argoty. Victoria is the WDI country contact in Colombia.
We are active since April 2022. I've never been alone in this. We have been a team. We were a team of 3 in the moment. We are now 9. And well, I'll show you our co-volunteers later. So we have around 2,000 followers on social networks, and that's like a lot for us because I think we are the first openly abolitionist collective of national scope in Colombia. So many movements and organizations in Colombia are in favor of abolition of prostitution, but have not progressed the debate or the definitions to gender itself. So we have to face difficulties with other collectives that think that we are too radical, too vehement, too loud about gender and trans identity, and they do not understand how trans identities have harmed women. So we are pioneers in our country in that. So our movement has grown during the first progressive left government in Colombia in 200 years. So we are women that mostly come from the left in our movement, and for logical reasons. And we were we had high hopes on this government because we thought we could be heard, and that the logic of human rights and equality would get to a president that even writes that prostitution is violence, that is that aware that prostitution is violence. So we had to face from the beginning in government issues that this progressive government started the Ministry of Equality. Well, I think we will talk first about the Ministry of Equality, and then I'll talk to you about the first time that we went out to the streets. So the Ministry of Equality was created as a project of the progressive left to, pay a debt with the historically vulnerable, impoverished populations, people in Colombia. So this was handed over to Francia Marquez, which is the vice president, which had a political capital that was very important to get these political projects in the presidency. So this Ministry of Equality was a very big deal of this government. So it was handed over to the vice president because the vice president's job is just a decorative job. It's not important. It's not even in charge of the government when the president is not available. So this was a very symbolic and strong move that giving the first vice president, a Black woman, a whole ministry to demonstrate what equality and anti-racism looks like. So very soon, the structure was approved in June 2023. And this includes 5 vice ministries for women, youth, excluded population and territories, and overcoming poverty, for diversity, and for ethnic and rural peoples. This is a liberal, progressive left. So diversity is such a big deal. So the first image and priority was trans women, of course, trans-identified men. And as a part of the Vice Ministry of Women, an office was created and was called the Directorate for Women in Paid Sexual Activities. So from the very start, from the very institutional design, this was an aggression against the rights of women and girls. So that's why we went out to the streets. Shortly after, Shortly after the ESS structure was approved, we went out to the streets and luckily inspired other organizations, abolitionist organizations in other cities that joined us in protesting the creation of such direction with such name. We were protesting the name that implied that this was something legitimate, not a form of violence, because it has to be defined as a form of violence from the beginning. That was the gathering argument that we use. So this was a very big deal for us because we are very afraid, these trans and pimp mobs are very dangerous. We work with the organizations that directly assist trafficking victims. So it's like really dangerous for women in the territory, not for myself personally, but because I cannot go there, but for my sisters in the territory that are there, like in the border, that in the periphery of the cities. So this was very important for us to dare to go to the streets. And we were like, this is the main central place in Bogota where the government buildings are, and we went out there. We got the collaboration of congresswoman, which was a student and is openly the only congresswoman openly abolitionist, is Jennifer Pedraza. She helped us with some, the sound system, some posters and everything. So this was very good for us. We started to create a movement, and we started to create momentum. And these videos I would like to show you.
De un plantón de diferentes sectores feministas que rechazan la dirección del Ministerio de la Igualdad, que trataría temas de derechos y sobre todo el trabajo sexual. Bienvenida, Victoria, y bueno, cuénteme específicamente ustedes qué piden y a quién le están haciendo este reclamo.
Bueno, buenas tardes. En primer lugar, nosotras queremos aclarar que nosotras estamos con las víctimas de explotación sexual. Y nosotras sabemos que las mujeres que terminan en la explotación sexual o en la prostitución lo hacen porque en su mayoría están en la pobreza y en la miseria. Entonces lo que le pedimos a la ministra de Igualdad es que nos dé una mesa de trabajo, una audiencia y que reconozca los tratados internacionales que ya pues han demostrado el vínculo indisociable entre prostitución y trata, y que adopte las medidas que la CEDAW ordena en su recomendación 38 de 2020.
Victoria, este plantón se está llevando a cabo a nivel nacional. ¿En qué otras ciudades se están reuniendo en este momento y a lo largo de la tarde?
Bueno, nosotras somos feministas y sobrevivientes de explotación sexual. Estamos en la ciudad de Bogotá en este momento, también en Medellín, en Cúcuta y en Cartagena. Van a ser a las 4 y 5 de la tarde. En nuestras redes sociales pueden encontrar los lugares y la hora de convocatoria para cada ciudad. Pues esperamos que la sociedad comprenda que nosotras estamos con las víctimas, con las mujeres prostituidas, y que exigimos posibilidades de trabajo y vida digna para todas las mujeres en este país.
Victoria, pues muchas gracias, y bueno, esta es la visión, y se declaran, por supuesto, por los derechos de las mujeres basados en sexo, que las mujeres no sean consideradas como un motín de guerra, y como dicen sus carteles, prostitución no es trabajo, es explotación y violencia. Este es el clamor de diferentes sectores feministas a esta hora en la Plaza de Bolívar. Yamit, continúe usted en estudio.
So this was very a big deal. I was really, we were really happy to be there. And even though with some of those women that we are not like working directly anymore, we know that we have joining points that is the general cause of the women. So for all of those that are not in our team, that do not talk to us for different reasons, we send our love and hugs. And thank you for all the collaboration, because it was very important. So let me show you again. And then, well, the next, around that mobilization that very day, a new collective was formed, and around the fight of a mother who was seeking justice for her little girl that, being a teenager, was kidnapped and raped by 3 contractors, U.S. military contractors that enjoy a diplomatic immunity and have not been brought to justice because of that, despite the evidence and the fight of the victims, because the daughter of Olga Castillo is not the only victim of these men. So I want to call the attention here because that collective was formed the very day that we went out to the streets. We motivated women enough to gather and fight in a concrete cause. And this movement, Olga Castillo, was not free of the trans violence against women, because a trans-identified man got involved very early in the confirmation of this group and started to, try to make things about himself, and was expelled, and then started a harassing campaign, an aggression campaign against the women in that collective that happened to be also in WDI. And he had to be, sued, to be warned, and that this escalated to police and justice stances, where we as a team, as WDI, have had to take legal measures to protect us, only because we are being target of harassment and violence for defending women's rights. Very soon, defending the right to justice of Olga Castillo comes to an abolition of the sex trade and the sex, platforms, and the sex identity, the trans identity that legitimizes the sex trade. So this is very, a very, from the beginning, the problem. So let's go to the Ministry of Equality again. I'm sorry. I get to. We went to the Ministry of Equality. We protested the structure, the Directorate of Sexual Paid Activities. And then let's meet the head of such directorate. It's obviously a trans-identified man, which has a career in the left because he's a Cuban stripper. And he is also extremely vulnerable because he's HIV positive. So he started his, governmental bureaucratic career in the administration, the city administration, where Gustavo Petro was mayor of Bogota. So this person started in the institutions, and since HIV positive people have a right to work reinforced stability, cannot be fired from any job in the institutions, in the governmental institutions, cannot be fired. So he has made a career out of being a stripper, a representative, of sex worker groups, and, also representing a vulnerable population, which is HIV positive people. So this is why this person is the head of the Directorate of Sexual Paid Activities. What has this directorate made for, in these several organizations were trying to reach out to this person to try to reason with them and try to listen to the abolitionist point of view, but there was never an open door. There was never an open approach, and he, in exchange of that, instead of that, established a work table which gathered sex work syndicates, trade unions, sex work unions, the owners of brothels, and the victims of sex trafficking in the same space. Of course, with the sex worker unions and the pimps overrepresented and overheard. and with all paid expenses brought from all the city, from wherever they would, in luxury hotel, at the very different invitation to participate in the spaces. So this has been a clear message of war against women and girls, and we will see other details of this ministry. So, as a consultant of these paid sexual activities, the director has been hired this woman. This woman her name is Alejandra Omaña, but her nickname in the porn industry is Amaranta Hank, which obviously enters the government as the representative of sex workers, quote, and has devoted her life to attack and defamate abolitionists, because she thinks she even is the founder of the first webcam university. She started a so-called educative project to form women to be porn actresses. And she now that has access to public spaces, to public policy spaces, tells lies about abolitionists, such as that we make up cases of sex trafficking just to, heighten the records, because supposedly we get money for doing that. So she is basically saying that women that make a denounce are lying. She even is a victim, because she has told about the abuse and the harassment she has been subjected to because of being a porn actress, but she is still accusing women of lying when telling about this case. So this is the Ministry of Equality that we have to fight against. So this is coming to an end. The Ministry of Equality is a total failure, because it has only focused in the trans-identified people. So the other vice departments, vice ministries have been, well, I don't know deeply, but the main image of the Ministry of Equality is exactly the attention to trans people. So it's only executed 2% of the budget, as long as I know. I do not have exact data right now, but these are news that have been going around a while. So this is a very brief resume. So the decree was revoked because it has mistakes in the paperwork. So this ministry is not going to live for more than 2 years. That is exactly less than 2 years now, because that's what's left of this government for this term. So this Ministry of Equality was a harm for women and girls, and a harm from the leftist progressive project that's won by both of the Colombians. So now that is a failure, and in other aspects, the government is recurring to its patriarchal always. So now Francia Marquez, that was the very first figure, the most brilliant figure of that election as vice president, was removed as head of this department, and was replaced by a Black man that is, well, an activist for the rights of Black people, Raizal Palenquero, but also happens to have participated in the gay porn industry. So we have now a Ministry of Equality in the head of porn-abiding people, for consumers and makers. And not only that, but now that there is no vice minister of women of that branch of the ministry, the deputy vice minister is this stripper that is in the head of the Directorate of the Sexual Paid Activities. So all the Department of Women in the Ministry of Equality is in the head of a lobbyist of prostitution, of a lobbyist of porn and the sex trade. So this is very much what we have to fight. We are still currently a representative of feminist organization, of women's organizations in an assessing committee of a law. And this committee is very important. It has to meet, every 2 months, every 3 months. And this committee has practically deactivated because because we are opposed to those perspectives. So every time we get together, they put the topic of the integration of trans women in the problem of violence, of gender violence. So it's very difficult. Oh well, let's go to surrogacy. That is the other front that we've been working to. In the on-ground organizations, we have information that the armed group and the clinics of surrogacy are conflating to take babies from vulnerable women in the very remote territories where the government doesn't get, and where obviously there's no opportunities. The general rule is misery. So we have a lot of cases of baby selling, but we have also like these more elegant apparent clinics that interview surrogates, and this surrogate says that they are so happy to make it possible for a family to be formed for the dreams of other people. So we are very advanced in that discourse that says that surrogacy is a technical aid for infertility, as if women are, technical instruments, and that women do that only because of altruism. So that's even the Constitutional Court has issued rulings that say that the government has to regulate this activity because the problem is not that it's happening, sino that it's unregulated. So there has not been a project, a law approved regulating this, but there has been attempts, and there will be attempts. There's always at least 2 attempts per year to legislate surrogacy, to regulate surrogacy, and each one is worse than the one before. So we are what they have in common is that they say that women are altruistic, that it has to be with no reward, with no, for just because the woman wants, and just because, and she's not going to get rich of that. So, but the last one that we are currently examining, that I already made the observations, introduces a tax on surrogacy. So the state can be a pimp, a regulatory pimp, and it's a 10% that is supposedly going to be directed to the Institute of Family Welfare, that is like child protection services. So it's like making a complicit circle of criminality, profiting from the body of a woman and a baby that cannot consent. So we have promoted different documents. We even made a manifesto against surrogacy that actually stopped one of these law projects from being approved. So we often get to engage and work together with other organizations, even though they do not want to be related to WDI. but we get to work with them to produce documents and instruments that do their job of persuading congresswomen and men of voting against these initiatives. So that's also a very good news. But the battle is still, on fire. We will have to face this loss now and forever, I think. Now we have to face the problem of trans femicide. Every time a trans identified man gets killed, we are the worst people in the earth. And we are even afraid of going out to the streets. We have had aggressions on March 8th. I think if it was in March 8th, 2024. My girls in the chat will help me if I'm wrong. But one of our friends was hit actually by a trans activist, and we published that on the network. I think you retweeted us. So it's not nice for us out there. Although there are more rad gender critical women each day, and they are younger and younger every day. So we're happy to see that, because we see a lot of girls, a lot of really young women joining us in different levels. So that's really nice. And well, I'll talk about this trans femicide quote, because this is the example of what happens with these men. So these men are often gay men, feminized men that end up in prostitution, and of course, and in drug trafficking related environments. So they get killed in these environments, and then we are blamed. Women like us are blamed for saying that this is not a woman. So this case was world famous only because his death was recorded. His final moments were recorded. He was like in very bad condition, holding with broken limbs onto a very, big river, very strong river. And this was used, the sentiments against this kind of cruelty was used to promote hate against feminists, saying that this is what produces denying that a man can be a woman. So I think some of you have seen the video or heard the case about Sarah Miller. And what happened is that this person was killed by drug trafficking mafias. That besides, this person had a history of having, conflicts regarding robberies in the neighborhood. I'm not, a vulnerable person is a vulnerable person. But I think this person was subject also to sexual exploitation. It wouldn't be, weird. And the alleged kill was already, captured. It was, a gang member. So it becomes clear one moment or the other, sooner or later, that is because being in the environment of drug trafficking and sex exploitation. But these cases are used against us to promote, for example, the Ley Integral Trans, the comprehensive trans law, which is really, yeah, it's already outdated, seeing the experience of other countries. And so we have to face that. Is going this law is going its way, it's opening its way to approval, and we will have to be very, very attentive. So we are still fighting against the trans children speech and all of that. And we have motivated also other people to, come out and say it loud, and we're very happy about that, because it didn't happen a couple of years before. Recently we have we have come to in connection to an account of a Colombian teacher that remains anonymous, and he makes very, very important, very very comprehensive analysis of legislations and everything around the world. And these documents that he produces have been very useful for us. So we are motivating other people to work in the same direction than ours. So it's really happy for us in the middle of such an hostile environment to be motivating other people to speak out and to stand their ground, to defend truth and to defend women and girls. And I may have forgotten something, but yes, I think that's all. And I'm very thankful. There's a lot of things that happen, but well, we are with the organizations that we are connected to, we are very aware of the legislation and the advancement in judicial rulings that helps the victims. So I think it's going well for the organization, even though there is a war, there's no budgets, but women are waking up, I think, and we are getting more and more support each day. I would like to show you a last thing. I want to show you the picture of some of our volunteers. There's Alejandra. You see the one on the left top is Alejandra, which is in Cucuta in the northern border. She's not our survivor hero. And this is Adriana, which is now in Medellin, and she's our influencer. She's the one who is, if you see our Instagram page and our X, she's in all the videos. And this is some of us that gathered last year. And this is Lucia, Tati, Aleja, and me. So I wanted to show you all her the help and the love that we share.